All right, guys, welcome into today's show. We're joined today by the pitmaster from TFS Pit Vipers out of Tallulah Falls, Georgia, Mr. Tom Tilley. Tom, how you doing today?
Man, I really appreciate it. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, Tom comes highly recommended by a mutual friend and reached out to Tom on Facebook, and here we are. So Tom's actually a unique character. He is the pitmaster for a high school team. Is that right?
That's right. I'm infamous.
So Tom has the luxury of literally having a new team every year.
Every year, a new team.
So let's chat about, I always like to chat about journey into barbecue because there's always a good story behind it. And I'm sure you've got several stories.
This is a good one.
But let's camp out there. So educate us on your journey into barbecue.
Wow. So I was a head varsity basketball coach, and I'm sitting in my classroom. The principal walks in. She says, "Tilley, you're the only one on campus that doesn't host a club." And so I go, "But," she goes, "Don't but me," and it was playful bantering. And I said, "Fine, barbecue club." She goes, "Barbecue club it is." And she walked out, and it was Kim Popham. And so we had they had club day, and the school had the gymnasium, and like the Key Cup had these exotic props, and it was just me and a clipboard. One of my students walked up and picked it up and goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Barbecue club." And he walked around, and at the end of the day, we only had 200 members at the school at the time, and we had 100 signatures on there for the barbecue club, and it just spiraled. First meeting, "What do you guys want to do?" Whole hog. And I'd been around whole hog, and they said, "All right, what else you want to do?" And they go, "Well, Cornelia has the Big Red Apple Festival coming up. We want to compete." And I was like, "Compete?" And that's where it started.
Now, so how long ago was that? What year was that?
So our first KCBS was 2018, April. We only did that one that year. The next year, 2019, we did 3 or 4. And then 2020, we hit 10, and last year, 10 or 11.
Wow. And you guys already have a junior world, or what was the championship you guys won?
All right, so Melissa Cookston, the Queen of Q out of Memphis, she puts on the World Junior League Barbecue Championship, and it's high schools only. And it's the only chance we get the opportunity to cook against people of our own likeness. And so we went out there, and so she said, "You can only have 4 members per team. I have 8 pit vipers." And we went out there, and so we had 2 teams, and there were probably 15 schools, 10, and some of them had 2 teams. One high school had 3, and we got first and second.
Wow!
And so we took all of it. It was a total prize. I think we came home with 13-2 in prize winnings. 13. So we're the World Junior League Barbecue Championship. And here's a funny story that goes with that. Is they rope off a section, so I can't go near the kids. So it's almost like police tape, 12 feet away, and only unless there's an emergency, somebody's cut or stoking coals. And I look over and I'm watching the other teams. Come turning time, they're kind of frantic. They're in panic. And I turn around, well, my team's gone. And one of my pit vipers walks up. I said, "Brooke, where's everybody at?" Well, they were on the climbing wall playing. So they were calm as they were. Right. "Hey, coach, I got another 15 minutes till I need to check my temp." Right. So we won. It was great. It was a great experience. And we're going to go back this year as the defending champ.
So
in October.
So you started the barbecue club in 2018 with 100 people right out of the gate.
Yeah.
What about let's go farther back than that, right? What started the whole barbecue journey for you? Was it childhood? Was it middle school? Where did that passion start burning?
I actually would been around it a little bit growing up, hog roasts, family get-togethers, weddings, and that such. And I was very interested. And I was actually dating a girl whose father did a 24-hour smoke on a ham. And it was the best ham I had in my life. I'm like, look, when I get old, when I grow up, I want to do that too. And that's kind of what got me started. Now, I would not presume to know how to cook a ham for 24 hours right now, a fresh ham, but he did it.
Right.
I mean, I cook them for, and per pound, 19 hours for 19 pounds, but I don't usually get them that big.
I'm curious, when you're coaching, when you're helping your club, master all these different techniques, are you from the hot and fast school? Are you from the low and slow school, or you just let them decide?
I'm from the hot and fast school, and all we could afford at first were drums.
Right.
And when I say on drums, Hunsuckers, and they're pretty expensive now in the gateways, but I had Scott Smith at Stewin, Bruin and Kewen come along out of Ackworth, and I bought a drum off him, and then he just started giving them to me, his own drums. So, Southern Q Barbecue give us their drums, and he still does, and he still gives us cookers. He sold us a trailer for at cost, and then put a Limo Junior on the back. Now I got to learn low and slow.
Now you got to learn low and slow. That's right. So
I don't have anything against Rectex.
Rectex, you'll see them a lot. I've seen them a lot on the competition circuit. You talked about guys like Kerry Chastain, Mark Weatherell. Those guys cook on Rectex. I know they cook their chicken on Rectex. That's how it's funny. Being in Augusta, we're right here in Rectex backyard. It's their HQ. And I actually won a Rectex from a charity raffle like 3 or 4 years ago. And that really started me on this whole barbecue journey, because up until that time, I was just cooking on a standard 22-inch Weber kettle, old school, which you're somewhat limited with, so that really kind of broadened my horizons. And then it started this whole competition barbecue thing, and it all went from there. So, well, what's your team, the Pit Vipers? What's the setup look like? You guys are cooking backyard, so you're not cooking brisket, right?
We're not, unless it's the World Junior League Championship. We do cook brisket, so and that's how we
three meats,
cook it
right?
In, right, and
okay.
Let's see, Calhoun. The competition in Calhoun does the backyard briskets, so we only do Calhoun and then the World Junior League. But our briskets are, the first one we turned in was beef jerky. It was pretty dry, pretty rough, but you know what? You got to start somewhere, and we've gotten better. We're still not at Kerry's level or anybody else, those top-notch cooks that you mentioned.
Well, I think with folks like that, they set the standard and the bar really, really high. And Kerry also is retired. So,
that does help.
So that helps. I don't think I'll be able to cook as many as he cooks in a year for quite some time. But it's you touched on this earlier, and that is the outpouring of support that you received from the barbecue community. It's incredible. I mean, it's a really great community.
It's almost impossible to explain it to somebody, because as a former head coach, and once you're a successful head coach, there's some resentment, and there, egos get involved, and some kind of childish bickering, and this barbecue does not have any of that. It's just, hey, I mean, I've never been turned away when I've asked a question, and thankfully, they've never turned me away.
Right.
I
guess they'll start turning you away when you start beating them.
So we'll just have to stay backyard.
Just stay. That's exactly right. Stay backyard.
Yeah, so, I wonder if some of the guys look. Oh, it's Tom again calling me.
I'm gonna have to start putting Tom on. I'm gonna have to get him on a retainer. So, what's your with the team, with the high school team? It's high school, right?
It's high school.
With the team, what's your vision? I mean, so you started it 4 years ago. It survived through COVID. It's still flourishing. I mean, what's your vision for the team going forward over the next 2, 3, 5 years?
To be honest with you, my original vision was to the high schoolers do pro and have a middle school team. You have Pit Vipers too. Call them something, the Rattlesnakes, whatever, and them do backyard. And then so I have a pipeline of kids that know how to cook, and then they should be doing pro. If you're cooking and starting in the 6th grade, by the time you're a junior, you should probably be with the big boys, or at least, you know.
That's a good point.
But finding another staff member that's willing to get up at 3:35, 4:30 and stoke a fire. And there's been sip and swine festivals in Lawrenceville that were 20 degrees you know, and we sleep on the ground. We don't have an RV. We sleep in tents so it's really hard to find another staff member to have two teams, but sooner or later, I'm hoping to have two teams and have a high school pro and a middle school backyard. High school barbecue was about to explode. I was working with Emily Detweiler, she was the CEO was the CEO of the KCBS, and we spoke many times on starting a division for the KCBS for high school, but now I don't know what's going to happen. So,
because she's no longer there.
Yeah, she resigned, went on to bigger and better things. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it just keeps metastasizing into big things, and how much more can we grow? You know, but we're not ready to compete against the Smoke Lee Sillies and the Hold Your Horses and daggone Paul for Rooters and Tutors. Goodness gracious, those teams are good.
They're very good, and I would say this. I would agree that, you know, there's a time and a place when you're ready versus when you're not ready. But I would also say that just getting in the ring with those teams, you're going to be better. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it. You know, chances are they're going to beat me statistically, right? I know that I'm smart enough to know they're going to beat me, but I also know that if I'm cooking against teams that, you know, I'm going to consistently beat, I'm not really getting any better.
Right. And well, that's you. That was the podcast with Kenny O'Shields, and we cooked together. I was with the Hog Mafia when he's been there, and wow, that's a good philosophy. That holds true in athletics.
That's exactly right. And to your point earlier about just the family and the willingness of others to help you and support and help you, you know, teach you techniques, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I think that's what it's all about. And yeah, of course, you have the teams that, you know, are really tight-lipped and, you know, don't want to say anything, and, you know, teach their own. I personally believe, and I think you probably share the same sentiment, that if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. You know, it'll all come back around to you. I'm curious though, because this idea of bringing up the next generation of, I'll call it barbecue pit vipers, right? Bringing up the next generation of barbecue pit masters. It's important. And I hadn't really thought about that until I started to really look at what you were doing over there in Tallulah Falls.
Right.
But I think it's super important for the industry, for the sport, if I can call it a sport.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, fair enough. Although I don't know if I would consider myself an athlete, but but I'm curious, you know, and this got my wheels turning. You know, I was curious and started to think, well, what if I wanted to try to start, because I'm not a teacher, you know, I'm not involved. My kids go to elementary school. But what if I wanted to start something like this in my area? I bet you some of the listeners probably are thinking the same thing. How would they even go about that? Would it just a matter of reaching out to local high schools, or?
Well, they can reach me.
Yeah, there you go.
I can give them a blueprint, but no, high school barbecue is about to explode. The Texans, they've got it. They have 200 plus teams. Or, you know, Mike Erickson out there with the National High School Barbecue Association. They just really got a good thing going out there. And the GHSA, the Georgia High School Athletic Association, has discussed adding competition barbecue to their list. I mean, they have a literary society, they have acting, daggone barbecues as much as the sport of those two. You know, and they just added fishing last spring or the spring before that. So they're talking about it now, and it's only a matter of time. It's going to explode. Basically, the best way I could see it working are teams out there. I mean, like Carrie helping us or Mark helping us is a good example of how it's going to have to work. You know, a pit master that's been in competition to go out there. I started with Chattahoochee Q with Alan Tucker and Jonathan Lowe, and then I went and I cooked with them, and then I went to Indiana and cooked with Bill Magerlin with Thunderhog, and he's exceptionally good and wins a lot. And then Hog Mafia. You've mentioned on a show before, there's just a substantial difference between cooking and I hit home runs and brisket on my carport, man. Daggone, they just melt. But boy, getting those kids and doing it myself in a competition is like, wow.
That's right.
It's just a whole new level.
There's I don't know who the quote's attributed to, but it's something to the effect of if you can't teach someone or simplify what you know and teach someone what you know, then you really haven't fully mastered it. Something along those lines. I think it might have been Einstein or Mark Twain, but I think that's exactly right. I mean, it's if you can't articulate that across to your students, then maybe you need to go back to the drawing board and brush up on some things. And
here's another problem with that is like when we were starting to reaching plateaus, I pulled Sean Tregestead aside for Angry Jack. I said, how do you win so consistently? He goes, Tom, that's all I do is practice. So heck, it's easy practicing chicken and it's easy practicing ribs and it's easy practicing pulled pork, but it's not easy practicing Wagyu brisket.
Right.
Who can afford the Snake River Gold or the A9s out of Pensacola? Wow. And that's a journey. We're going to succeed sooner or later.
And you almost at this point, at least again, I'm a newbie, hence the name of the show. You're almost starting off, like 2 or 3 laps behind the other teams if you don't show up to that competition with a Wagyu brisket.
That's correct.
I mean,
I've ruined 2.
That's right. And I think they
were just too overcooked, overdone.
Overcooked, yeah.
I was pushing it.
What I've found is, and I don't know if you have, Kroger's in your area, but I found that they tend to put brisket on sale quite frequently in my area. And I keep a sharp eye for it. And once it goes to like $1.99 a pound or 99 cents a pound. Now, granted, it's not Wagyu by any stretch, but it's choice, Angus choice. I go and just stock up and get 8 or 10 of them at a time. And
we were even given a couple and we did well in a carport.
Yeah.
Wipers get in there but it is a journey.
You're right. And it's one of those things where, when I look at it from a business standpoint, because I'm a business owner. And when I look at barbecue from a business standpoint, one of the things I kept hearing over and over and over again when we first started was you can't make any money in competition barbecue. It's a loss leader, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no doubt you have to invest. There is a large investment, especially if you're going to take the time to drive and go compete with really good teams. But I think what I have found is that the more you invest in it, just like anything else, and I'm not just talking about money either, I'm talking about time.
Right.
The more that you invest in it, like I forget the name of the team that you just mentioned, but that team, you asked them, well, how the heck are you winning so much? It's like, well, I practice all the time,
like it's Sean Tregestead's who it was for Angry Jack, and he'd give me the recipe and then, beat me at it.
Yep.
We've been blessed by so many teams.
Well, one thing I have learned, and this is actually, I think this may have been from Mark's episode, but he talked about, basically the competition is won or lost in the last 10 or 15 minutes before turning. And he's exactly right. I mean, you could have, but it almost is like, flying on an airplane. I mean, you can have a great flight 95% of the time, but if the landing's rough, it's not such a great flight. Yeah. So, it's interesting how all that works. And when I look at it I'm a very competitive person, and at 39 years of age, I can't really compete necessarily out on the, soccer field or football field much anymore. But I like that aspect to it of actually having something to compete and challenge me mentally, because there's just so many things that change and so many, yes, I think there's the staple, rubs and sauces that have been there and that'll probably be there for a long time. But then you have some of these things that come into the fold that are newer ways of cooking, like the whole hot and fast. I think that was something relatively new, maybe, I don't know, last 10 years or so?
Probably.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know.
Something like that. But that's a relatively new concept.
Low and slow.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's moist and it's tender. I don't care which style you use. Texture, moisture, tenderness.
Do you have a preference at the house?
Well, hot and fast. I want, and the kids smell it all day. I have 3 teenagers at home, and it's a revolving door, so they can smell it all day. When's that going to be done? So hot and fast. I'm kind of lazy. I just don't like to cook over 12 hours.
Yeah.
And that's, and usually, and that's the thing with whole hog. I believe the best barbecue in the world is whole hog. When you mix together the shoulder and the loin and the belly and the ham and daggone, I get a 150-pound hog. I'm not going to get a 250. I'm
Right.
not going to sit there. But yeah, it's barbecue.
So let's camp out on whole hog, because I think the argument can be made that whole hog is the pinnacle of barbecue. Now, I know some teams in Texas might disagree on that one. But how did you learn to cook whole hog? Was that something you learned early on or later?
Family get-togethers, uncles, weddings, and I thought this is fabulous. And I don't know, I was biased. That was a biased comment that whole hog's the best barbecue. But when you mix all those flavors together and cook those, I've probably done 6 in the last 2 years or 2 or 3 years, and daggone, there's just nothing like it. Now the family likes skinless, boneless chicken breasts, Springer Mountain Farms, off of the grill grates. They grill marks, and so I do that more than I do anything. It's hard to find something that all the Tilleys like, and that's one of them.
Yep, that can be super, super difficult. Now, when you're cooking the whole hog, are you doing the old school like cinder block pit?
Yep.
Okay, so just nothing fancy. You got the cinder block pit. Yeah.
Chicken tin cover, stretcher, and cinder blocks.
I love that. So one of the things we did chat about before the show is you have had a tremendous outpouring of support over the years from rubs and sauces and smokers, et cetera. So who are those? Let's camp out on that. Who are those businesses that are supporting you guys right now and helping you compete?
So right now we have about 6 sponsors. Heather Senior, Springer Mountain Farms. I mean, that's just daggone a 15-minute drive from here, and they take care of us in chicken. Jeff Campbell, who cooked with Wicked Q forever, and Farm 441, supplies us our harder charcoal. And then Scott Smith with Southern Q Smokers has given us 4 cookers in a row for free, for 4 years in a row, a free cooker. Vince Culinetta for Smoking Wizard Blaze. He sends us free sauces. Nice. Frank Nagel and Chad Warner for Yes Dear sends us Not Juice and Red. I mean, Paul Holden from Willingham's covers all of our entry fees, and that's huge. We're at a school, and don't get me wrong, our school treats us like a football team, like a public school would a football team. But when you have somebody covering us all, and then I got guys on speed dial, like 4 or 5 guys on speed dial. So when everything goes wrong, I mean, think about it. You've been in competition before. You know what it's all about. If there's something's going to go wrong, we plan every minute, but you can't plan every minute. It can't stay on that schedule, that timeline. But we have wonderful sponsors. We get offered a sponsorship every 10 days.
It's a great place to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I wish I had that same problem. I don't, but I guess at some point, like you were talking about before we started recording, at some point you have to start saying thanks, but no thanks. To not have. You can't
throw your local guy underneath the bus for the national brand.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you got to remember who took care of you from the very beginning too. I think that's important. So for those, I'm curious though, like with the way that the team is set up, how are you guys able to practice? Are you practicing like a sports team?
All right, so here's what I'll do. For example, the late Josh Roberts says, "Hey, use this as your rib recipe. You've gotten below 172 in a row." So I took his recipe and I practiced myself, let's say 3 or 4 weeks playing around with it. Now, here's the thing. I am a teacher. I do get home early now that I don't coach anymore, basketball, and I can cook on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and twice on Sunday, which I do. It's my addiction, my vice. And I'll take it and I'll practice it 3 or 4 times. And when I think that I've reached the flavor that's competition ready, I'll bring in a pit viper and have them do it 1 time. And it usually involves a parent coming too, and then they get to take the food home. And then they have to learn on the fly. And where I've been blessed with lately is I have a very young crew that's very experienced. So we really should have we've having a great year so far. We've done really well so far, and it should, probably set your bar. You know, they tell me don't get caught up in the results. Boy, but it's hard to when your team's that good. It's like,
Right.
it's really hard. But we should do well with the rest of the year. We've won the GBC 2 years in a row for Team of the Year backyard.
That's
And
awesome.
last year we were 8th in ribs in the KCBS and 12th in chicken. They didn't measure pork, and we'd have been up there top 3 in pork. And I've got the same kids back, so we should be able to replicate at least that. But you never know with judges and the day, and you just
Now, are the
never know.
kids, are the kids on the team? Are they practicing on their own time as well?
I have 3 that cook at home, and that's the whole idea is, hey guys, you got to cook more at your house. And I have one parent that's calling and asking me, hey, my son wants a UDS now. And I've had some graduates from the Pit Vipers talk about starting their own team. And wow, now it's going to get exciting if I can get a couple of those alumni to start their own team.
Right. To kind of carry that,
Wow.
carry
that's
that
what it's all
torch on.
about.
That's exactly
It's not
right.
about bringing home fancy trophies. It's about a kid saying, man, thank you for teaching me that.
That's right. So you've got then 2 full teams at the moment, right?
I don't have, that's what I want eventually. I want a backyard in a high school, an upper school, a high school pro team, but I don't have that now. All I have is high school students now. I have Brooke Hayes, Lily Turpin, Jackson Carlin, Mark Crota, Jake Owensby, Frankie Pribble, and Matthew Wolf, and then my own kid. Right now, I put two kids per category, so they have to work together. And when they're not doing their stuff, they got to help another team. So it does look like I have a small army at these competitions, and I do not know how these guys do it by themselves, how they run their boxes, especially if you get a competition like Kennesaw where you have to go 6 blocks.
Yep.
And then they come back and cook. Like, wow, I've even offered to allow my kids to run boxes for them, jokingly saying they're going to trip over a curb. But, I don't know how they do it by themselves. I would never do it if I was by myself, to be honest with you. And I have 3 parents that help. My wife's one, and then Taylor Little and Matt Hayes help me. So I have 3 parents, or adults, I should say, to help me out.
They give you a hand. Now, how much are you
Watching
able to?
Kids.
So I know you mentioned they have the area roped off. How much are you even able to help the kids at all?
Oh, I join them if it's a regular KCBS competition, because I can't just sit there and watch. But when I do go to a competition that requires all the adults to be roped off with police tape, I have the table right next to them, and I'll point, hey, hit the knot juice over here. No, you need some smoking gun. And they do it themselves, and that's fun. That's more fun than me helping, to be honest with
you. Right, because it keeps you sharp too, I would imagine. Right.
And and I don't have them come over and mix the brines and the injections. I do all that myself, and I tell them what's in it, and they're interested to know what's in it. But that would require them to come over after school every night, going into a competition. But the thing about that is, if a kid's in baseball, swimming, wrestling, basketball, I tell them to go to their sport first. If I have 2 kids per turn-in box, I can do that. And sometimes I'll have, just one of them there. Sometimes both kids are out, and I have to plug in all the kids that are coming up now. I'm teaching them all the categories, but my top 3 or 4 are specialized. I have a pork cook, a brisket cook, a rib cook, and a chicken cook.
Love that. So what's your favorite thing to cook?
My favorite thing to at home, wild game in whole hog, but at competition, man, I tell you what, I really like the ribs. Yeah. And my son's kind of married to the ribs, and he does a fabulous job. He especially does a good job of knowing when they're done, hitting that right time when they're done. But he doesn't like eating them. So, but he tries every one, that third bone out of every rack. He tries it, and he doesn't like eating them. But ribs.
So ribs it is. Ribs seem to be a popular one. It kind of invokes, when you think about barbecue, you A lot of people think of that, the glazed ribs that just are spilling out juices everywhere. And I mean, that's kind of the typical July 4th barbecue picture, right? Is ribs.
Yeah, and they're not as hard as chicken. I think that's the hardest one.
That is very true.
It's just the most needy category.
Chicken seems to be very difficult, I think, for a lot of teams. I think.
And that's why people are jumping to the pellets like your RegTech, is because the temperature fluctuations at different. I think that your pellets are starting to take over the chicken categories because they're able to go from 265 to 295 or back down, whereas those UDSs don't like to do that very often.
And not quickly. That's right.
Yeah.
So how can our listeners connect with you? I know you've got a Facebook page, the TFS Pit Vipers, Instagram.
Yeah, we are on Barbecue Pit Vipers on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook as a group. But a personal message to me, and I'll respond right away. I'll give any. My wife and I make a ton of barbecue sauces at home. Not competition. We can't beat Heath Riles and Frank and Chad and Cosmos, but we can definitely beat the local Ingles or Publix on their sauces. So we make our own sauces. So anything we'll give. I have to give anything that anyone asks for because they gave it to us.
Exactly.
And it was Carrie that said, I don't want to be the guy that said no to somebody. Carrie actually told me that. I'm not going to be the guy that said no and didn't give you something that you asked for. I'm going to be just like him.
That's a good point. He's got a good model. I mean, he's got a great track record. So no reason to reinvent the wheel on that one. So they can check out on Facebook, they can check out on Instagram. And if we have listeners that want to, support you guys, are you guys nonprofit? How are you set up?
Yeah, so you can donate us anything, and I believe, oh gosh, someone's going to kill me on marketing. 503c3, the form that you can fill out for a nonprofit. We are a nonprofit school. That's really close to the form, and then they give it to us, and I get with the business office manager, and she sends them that, and they could claim it on their taxes. And I jokingly will tell somebody, well, you got an outlaw there. It's $10,000 cooker. Boy, I know a good nonprofit.
You can write off the whole
cooker. Got an outlaw yet.
Yeah, exactly. So again, for our listeners, take some time, connect with Tom. You can tell, just from listening, he's willing to help others climb. They're on Facebook, Barbecue Pit Vipers, or is it TFS Pit Vipers on Facebook?
On Facebook and Instagram, it's Barbecue Pit Vipers. I kind of it's all the school's name. I got to just Barbecue Pit Vipers.
There you go. So Barbecue Pit Vipers on Facebook and Instagram. You can also message Tom, like he said, super willing to help. And if you want to make a donation of anything, they are a 501c3. So there you go. Could help you out when Uncle Sam comes calling. Tom, really appreciate the time. And
hey, thanks for having me, man. Some of the guys you have on here are heavy hitters, and we're just kids smoking meat.
Well, it's what it's all about, though. It's all about teaching that next generation. And you have inspired me, in fact, to go out and try to engage with our local high school to see if there's some interest there.
Oh, cool.
Because my son, I have two boys, and that's where they're going to be going someday. So what better way than to embarrass them a little bit while they're in high school than to be out in the parking lot cooking barbecue. So
I appreciate it, brother.
Thanks again, Tom. Enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.
All right.